Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a mukbang or a mukbang. I'm not sure how you say it. I've got some food here. I was going to actually order Macca's, but then my mum made bao buns. Let me show you. So I'm going to make my way through this and I'm going to answer questions that you guys asked me. So I put a question box on my Instagram and I asked you guys, ask me questions and I'll go through it. So I'm going to try and answer as many as I can while I'm eating. Starting off though, I am going to dig in to the pork bao bun, which is this one here. Check that out. I'll link the recipe in the notes, but let's dive in. That was delicious. Okay, let's get into it. Can you please explain to us how you saved up and how long it took? I really need help. I can definitely explain. It took me a little while. I'm going to say it took me 4 years to save the deposit. Prior to getting the deposit saved, I also was in a bit of debt. So what I did was pay off my debt first, saved a small emergency fund, and then I started saving for the deposit. I'll explain a little bit more about savings once I get to a savings question. Someone says, I'm about to start the process of buying my first property, but I have no idea where to start. That was exactly how I was. And so what I had done was once I had saved, I'm going to say maybe it was about 15 to 20 grand, I went and met with a broker and I said, this is how much I've got. How much do I need? Where am I at? Is this a realistic expectation? Because I do want to enter the property market. I'm just going to take another bite. And so at that point, I'm going to say that was in January of 2020. And I met with a broker and she more or less said to me, you need to save a lot more. And so that from that point, I kind of had a clearer goal. Initially, I was meant to buy a property in Queensland because the property market in Sydney at the time and in Melbourne at the time was crazy, and buying a property in Queensland was going to be more achievable for me. I will also say that the property that I bought and my whole intention with buying a property was so that it could be an investment. This is not my forever home. This was just a way for me to invest in my future, essentially. Auctions and having final finance. So confused because you can lose deposit if not sorted. Absolutely. So I would say if you are going to an auction, I think if you're submitting offers, it's probably not as serious, but if you're going to an auction, I would say absolutely make sure you have pre-approval. Thankfully, I have pre-approval. It's still a very stressful process, even though you've got that. Someone says, when are you planning on moving in? I don't know if I'm moving in at all, guys. So I haven't decided on what I'm doing. How much you had to save / any grants. So guys, definitely meet with a broker. I went through a mortgage broker rather than going to the banks myself, because they should know all the grants that are available to you. And they should know things like the first home deposit saver scheme, or like you can even, there are other grants for certain areas where you can apply for that and not required to have such a high deposit. I did not have a high deposit. I had 10%, which you can borrow a loan or borrow money without the 20% deposit. All that means for you is that you may have to pay LMI, which is lender's mortgage insurance, and you may have to pay higher stamp duty depending on the cost of the property, and you also may have to have higher interest rates with the loan or higher repayments. Now, I want to say I'm not a professional. I'm just sharing my experience. That's why I said speak to a broker, because speaking to a broker helped me quite a bit, and I will link her details in the notes as well. What is the process of buying a house right from when you decide you want to buy? Oof. It took a while. It took a while. So I feel weird eating on camera. Anyway, I first got pre-approval and started going to inspections back in September, October last year. So going back to what I said, I met with the broker in January of 2020. And then I've got pre-approval and started going to inspections in September of 2021. So it does take time. I would also say you go to so many inspections, you submit offers, you miss out at auctions, and the whole process is very disheartening. And I don't think anyone really like talks about that. I wasn't really prepared for that. I cried a lot. I cried a lot. Someone says, do most houses go for auction in Melbourne? I think with the market being so hot, auctions are very common. The auction that I went to in which I got my property at was the first auction I had ever been to, and I was really nervous. But I would say most common auctions. And I think that's because the vendors know that people want the property and people want to buy. So it's better for them to go to an auction because you're more likely to have people to get like emotionally invested and bid higher and things like that. These are really delicious, by the way. I think I'm going to go for the chicken one next. In this, I've put sriracha, mayo, Kewpie mayo, and fried chicken. That's a good one. Someone says, are you excited? Not yet. I'm not excited yet. I think once I get the keys or once I settle, I'll be excited. So that's the other thing, right? I went to auction. I'll get to this as well because there's a question about settlement, but you can pick a 30-day settlement, a 45-day settlement, a 60-day settlement, a 90-day settlement, a 120-day settlement. So what that means is on the day of the auction, you pay the deposit or whatever it is. Sometimes it's 10%. Most of the time it's 10%. And basically you then on the day of settlement have to settle the rest of the money. So that's what day your mortgage would be drawn down by the bank. Someone says how to start inquiring about loans. You can do that yourself. You can go direct to a bank or you can go to a broker. I would recommend going to a broker because the broker, while they do get paid by the bank once they actually secure your finance, that's like the going thing for all brokers, right? So it's not like you're having to pay them to do that, which I think is good because they have access to all the banks. They have access to all the, I guess, options for you. Someone says, are you using this home as an investment property or as a property to live in first home owners grant? So I actually didn't qualify for the first home owners grant, and that's due to my income, which is fine. I am very grateful. And that's the other thing I want to say as well. Sorry guys, I'm a bit overwhelmed by eating and doing all this. I know how privileged I am to have full-time, very solid, sturdy, reliable income. I work in the energy and construction industry, which was not impacted at all over the last 2 years. So please keep that in mind. I know that for some of you watching this, you may be in an industry where you were out of work or you lost your job. So don't compare where you're at to where I'm at because the circumstances were extremely, I have been extremely privileged. And while I have done it on my own, and it has been quite hard, I just want to preface the conversation by saying that. And as I mentioned at the start, this property is not my forever home. I'm not going to live in it forever. If I do live in it, it will probably be for the first year just to get that stamp duty discount. But I didn't qualify for the first homeowners grant. Someone says choosing between buying an established home or buying land and building a home. Good question. So for me, as it was an investment, I need to get a drink, guys. I have Coke Zero in there. I didn't have a can, unfortunately. So for me, I was more focused on like the location of the property, and because my deposit and what I was able to borrow, I did not go buy a 4-bedroom 3-bathroom house that is my forever home. I just wanted to get into the property market, and for me it was just easier to buy an established property. The property I bought was built in the 80s. It's old. It's definitely old. It had the bathroom redone I think about 5 years ago, and I'm probably going to have to redo the kitchen as well at some point. But for me, it was more important to have a location that was good in terms of future for investing, for the property to go up in value down the track. And buying land and building a home, I'm sure, is an amazing option as well. And that's why I would say speak to a professional, because they'll be able to guide you down what is more, I guess, financially viable. Also, some of you might be in a completely different circumstance where you've got a partner or you've got young kids. Sorry, I'm just inhaled some sriracha. Where you've got a partner or you've got young kids, and doing that is going to be better for you. And that's why everyone's circumstances are so different. And so I would say it really depends on your values and where you're at in life. Someone says, how exhausting was the process out of 10? 20. I swear to God, it was so exhausting. It was emotionally draining. You know why? Because you get excited and then you get let down, and then you get excited and then you get let down. It's so like up and down, huge roller coaster. Really good question here. What were your red flags when looking for properties? Okay, so again, property I bought is not my forever home, but I wanted it to have good attributes or good things about it for whoever will live in it one day, or if I want to sell it down the track. And so for me, red flags were, I bought a like villa style unit. So it's like ground floor access. It's on a block shared with other properties. So there's 3 other properties. There's no active owners corporation, so that's something to be mindful of as well. And what I would say is, when you're looking for properties, if you're looking for properties like that, for me, I was only going to look at properties that were either at the front of the block or the back of the block. And the reason I was doing that was so that I wouldn't have neighbors on either side. And I also wanted to feel like I had my privacy. I went to one inspection and it was really weird. There were literally like 10 or 12 villas or units, whatever you want to call them, on this property. And the property that I was looking at was facing directly into like the property of somebody else. And so I felt like you really had no privacy. Like the lounge room was literally looking at like the lounge room of the person across the road. And it was like a private road in this like shared block with everybody. And so that was like immediate no for me, even though that property was perfect. Like kitchen had just been done. The backyard was beautiful. It had this decking. The bathroom had been done. Like it was just perfect. And so I thought to myself, for me, privacy was like a big one. Also the lighting was like a big one. And then the structure. I didn't really care too much about like the blinds, the paint, the floor, because all of that can be changed. I just wanted to have a property with like good bones, essentially. What was the finance process like? So again, guys, I went to see a broker. She basically told me I needed to save a bit more. I went away and I saved some more, and then I went back to her when I had hit the goal. And the other thing I will mention as well, I moved home in March of 2021. And because I moved home, I was able to minimize my living expenses, and that allowed me to save even more money than what I had anticipated. Any tips regarding deposits and getting into the market? Speak to a broker, because you don't need 20%. You really don't need 20%, guys. Someone says, how much did you save on top of the deposit to have in savings once deposit was paid? Good question. So guys, I have about $5,000 in a emergency fund. Sorry, I'm like eating and talking. And then I've got, I'm gonna say, another $10,000 saved because I didn't want to clear out my bank account. That $10,000 is going to be for some furniture and maybe potentially fixing the kitchen. Someone says, what made you want to get into the property market? I really value financial freedom, guys. And so because of that, I invest in shares. Because of that, I contribute extra to my super. Because of that, I wanted to diversify my assets and have property as one of my asset classes. Now, property is not for everybody. I know some people, some of my friends who just invest and would prefer not to have property as an asset. For me, it was important to me, and that's why I wanted to get into it. Someone says, how much of a deposit did you have to save? I saved $65,000, which is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And so it was scary handing over the deposit on the day of the auction because it's like, wow, I worked so hard for this. But at the same time, I was like, this is what I really want. And yes, it's scary and terrifying and probably like the most expensive purchase that I'll ever make in my life. But I had wanted to do it. So I did it. Someone says, I'd like to know about fixed/variable interest rates and how you decided with which bank. So my broker did all of that for me. I think a portion of the term is going to be fixed. So I think my loan might be fixed for the first 2 years, which is good because I think interest rates will go up. And I'm able to have an offset account. So I'll be pushing as much money as I can in there to keep, obviously, the interest down. How did you feel about buying on auction? Is there a cooling off on auction sales? No, guys. When you buy at an auction, there's no cooling off period. The second you're the highest bidder and the property gets assigned to you and you sign that contract, you can't get out of it. So with private offers, you can make a private offer, and I think you can put like subject to finance or whatever into the contract. So if you have like buyer's remorse or you can't get your finance sorted, you can back out of it at an auction. You don't have that luxury. Someone says, how much of a deposit did you save versus did you actually put down? I saved $65,000 and I put down a deposit of $60,500. How did you go about saving for your deposit? Any tips or tricks you can suggest? Absolutely. So for me, I had a really bad relationship with money, guys. I've spoken about it very briefly in my blog and on my story. I was in a lot of debt. I used to live paycheck to paycheck. I also had a loan that I would constantly redraw. Constantly. And I ended up in about $30,000 worth of debt. $30,000 worth of debt at 23 years old. Crazy. I think about it now and I had so much shame and like guilt and embarrassment and like I just thought to myself, how did I let myself get in that position? A podcast that I listened to that changed my life was She's on the Money. I fucking love Victoria and I fucking love that podcast. And without it, I don't know what my money story would have looked like, but that's what got me to sort out my shit. And so I was very lucky at the time. I had received some bonuses through work or like commissions through work. And once I had really made a conscious plan of attack to wipe out my debt, I really like pulled back on like discretionary like spending. So spending on random things. I stopped getting my eyelashes done. I stopped getting my nails done, I think. I stopped like buying unnecessary outfits or partying on the weekends because that's what I was doing. That's how I think I landed up in, you know, a lot of debt. I really had to change my lifestyle because I was looking at what I was doing and I realized that, fuck, this is on me. This is on me to make better decisions, to make better choices, and look at what I'm doing. I'm not really showing up for who I want to be, and I'm not setting myself up for success when I keep choosing bad bad decisions. I chose bad decisions constantly. And so it was a process. It was hard. I was funneling all my money literally into my debt and paying that down. I still remember the day I paid off my ANZ loan. I was so excited. I was so embarrassed though. I didn't tell anybody. I was so proud of myself and I didn't tell anybody. I'm gonna cry. Don't cry. I was so embarrassed. And there's nothing to be embarrassed of, guys. If you're in that situation and you are in debt, and it's credit card debt or personal loan debt, any type of consumer debt, I'm not talking about HEX debt, by the way. If that is you, don't feel like there's no way out of it, because there absolutely is. And I would say it was a good hard look at myself and figuring out, is this really the way you want to live? So I was also very lucky at the time. I think it was about 2019. I had taken a job at a different company. It was a higher paying job, so that helped me because I went up in my salary by quite a bit. And then I got paid out the annual leave that I had not taken from my last employer. And I also received a bonus from my last employer as well. So I literally got a chunk of money. I think I had paid off, I'm going to say I had paid off nearly half of my debt at that point. And then my annual leave plus my bonus was about 15 grand. I did not spend a fucking cent of it. I paid off my ANZ loan, and I promised myself that I was never going to get into debt like that again. Obviously HEX debt different, also mortgage debt different. And then I started saving, and by that point, because I was funneling money into the debt to try and get it down as quickly as I could, I had created some good money saving habits. So then I continued to keep saving, and I'll show you something when I'm done eating. Let me quickly shove this in my mouth. Someone says, did you commit to a savings process or plan for your deposit? Let me show you. I'm going to quickly grab it. So I actually showed this on one of the lives that I did on TikTok the other day. It's from She's on the Money. It's this money savings hack. And basically you can get them for $10,000, $5,000 or $20,000, I think, off their website. And basically you cross off each week as you're saving money. And doing these is how I saved a bulk of the money. Because every week my pay varies because of the pay structure I have. I have a base salary and then I get paid either commission or bonuses. And so really just depends on what's going on with work. Basically, if I'm hitting my targets, I get extra cash. If not, then, you know, it is what it is. But using that was really helpful, and just like creating those money habits, I think you can get on their website. Did you get any first home buyers grants or stamp duty waivers? I am getting I think I'm getting a stamp duty waiver because I'm going to live in it. I'm probably going to live in it. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. We'll see. How can you tell if it's the right property or place? Do you get the feeling it is? No. So for me, I had a checklist of what I wanted, and because I had clarity on what I wanted, if a property didn't tick those boxes, then I would rule it out. So I think creating like a brief of what you want your property to have, and being flexible. Like for me, I had to prioritize location and certain aspects of the property. And so the property I bought, I'm going to have to fix the kitchen. I'm going to have to fix the garden. I'm going to have to paint the whole place. I'm going to change the blinds. I'm going to change the flooring. That's a lot of work to go into it. But I was happy to do it because it ticked all my other boxes. As for feeling if it was the right place or not, I was so anxiety riddled. So I couldn't trust my gut instinct. I also used a buyer's agent. So someone asked me about a buyer's agent. And so a buyer's agent, their role is to find you properties. And so the buyer's agent I used was more of like an investing aspect. I will say, if you are considering a buyer's agent, find one that has a fixed fee, say of like $10,000 or, you know, $15,000 or whatever it is, I feel like the average price for a buyer's agent is around $10,000 to $15,000. And basically what you want to do is find someone that has a fixed fee versus somebody that has a percentage of how much the property is. Because if you're going to have to pay them a percentage, they should get that price down as low as they can. But if you're paying them a percentage, they're probably going to bump it up. So you want a fixed fee if you're using a buyer's agent. Was it difficult to get a loan being an individual single? I definitely think that my options with banks was limited. And again, probably from like the loan I had in the past, I don't know. When you apply for a loan, they look at your ability to service it. And thankfully, due to my stable employment, I think that made a difference. But my broker really handled all of that for me. So I didn't go through that process by myself. The broker did. How long did pre-approval take? To be honest, not that long. I don't think it took that long. I'm going to say like maybe like a month. And then if your pre-approval expires, which get prepared for it to expire. I had a meltdown when mine expired. I was like, what the fuck? Why is it expiring? And they only last, I think, like 3 months. You can then get it again. How did you know when you were ready and decided on the one? I didn't know that I was ready. I never felt ready. On the day of the auction, I wanted to cry because I was like, I don't feel ready. And I guess for me, it was like I had been working towards this. I'd been working towards it for a long time. So I just had to suck it up and say, well, I'm going to do this now. Did you have to watch your spending bank account before going for a home loan? Yes. So I had already done this, but closing your Afterpay, get rid of that. That's fucking so shit, guys. Afterpay is not good money habits. I'm in a bit of a pickle because with my work, I do a lot of like lunching, taking clients out, buying things, and then it gets expensed back into my bank account. So sometimes I can have really like exorbitant like prices or like spending in my bank because I don't have a company credit card. The money comes out of my account, and then when I get paid, it comes back in. But I just disclosed that to my broker, and they could see it on my pay slips and obviously on my spending because they have access to your bank statements. So I would say, yeah, be mindful of it and don't be going and making crazy purchases either because they do look at everything. What happens if there is something wrong with the house after you purchase it at auction? It's nothing. You've got to deal with it, which is kind of the predicament I'm in at the moment, guys. So I said I wasn't going to talk about it. I'm not going to go into too much detail. There is something that's come to my attention after the auction, which is very frustrating. And so there's nothing I can do about it. How do you feel moving away from your parents? I moved away from my mum and dad in 2017, and I moved to Sydney in 2017 or 2018. Sorry, my timeline's all over the place. And so I know what it's like to live interstate, and I'm okay. They're probably sad about it. Someone says I've saved a good deposit. Who do I contact first? A broker. How long before moving out do you recommend buying furniture and appliances? So guys, I lived out of home for like 3 or 4 years, and I was renting in Sydney, and I already have a lot of appliances. I've got a fridge, a washing machine, all of it, like a whole kitchen. When I moved back to Melbourne, I sold my table, I sold my couch, everything else I have a TV, I have a TV unit, I have, you know, everything for a bedroom. I will need to obviously get some furniture when I move, but I would say, depending on your circumstances, if you're at home, there's no rush. Obviously, if you're wanting to move in straight away, then do that prior, like organize it prior to moving in and see if you can get it delivered on the day that you get the keys or the day after that you move in. So like large appliances getting delivered to your house rather than you like commuting them yourself. But I would say start looking as early as you can. Start buying things on sale, start buying things, you know, if you see a deal, stock up. The thing that I thought was like not so expensive but ended up being so expensive was like kitchen stuff. And I had to buy all that stuff when I moved to Sydney because I was living alone, and so I had to furnish an apartment. And I'm very grateful that I have all that stuff now, so I don't have to buy it again, but that was surprisingly expensive. How long were you looking for? What's September, October, November, December, January, February, March? 6 months, which is actually not that long if I think about it. Did you go with a big 4 bank or a smaller bank? Navigating my way through the process. It's with, my loan is with ING. My broker got me a bank or a deal with ING, which I don't think they're a big 4. Also, I have a bit of PTSD from ANZ, so no offense to ANZ if you're watching this. Tips on making offers. I know you bought at auctions, but if you have any tips. I don't actually have any good tips, guys, because I never was successful at making an offer. So that's why I ended up buying at an auction. All right, I'm still going, guys. We're gonna eat the biscuits now. How long is the settlement period? Again, like I said before, it can vary. How did you know what and where you wanted to buy? To be honest, I was limited by my budget. Really, my budget determined how close I could get to the CBD and how big the property could be. Do you have any good budgeting apps or advice like weekly spending? Yes, I do. So I'm going to say, you want to make sure if you're currently renting. So these are things that I did. I moved in with an ex. I moved in with a housemate to get my rent down. So while I was renting in Sydney, and you guys know what rent in Sydney is like if you live in Sydney, I was still trying to save. Obviously, I wasn't saving as much as what I saved by living at home for the last year. My parents helped me so much by letting me move back in here and not paying rent. My parents would never make me pay rent, but compared to living out on my own and renting, I lived with people to get that cost down. So I would say looking for your quick wins. Can you rent somewhere that's cheaper? Can you move back in with your parents? I know that not everyone has that luxury. Can you move back in with your partner's parents? Can you move, I don't know, can you move somewhere that is less expensive? Then I want you to look at everything like to do with your utilities. I work for an energy company, so obviously I get a good discount on my energy, but making sure you're on a good deal for your energy. If you're paying any insurances like health insurance, things like that, getting it as cheap as you can. You want to make sure your spending is minimal. Also, maybe it looks like cutting down on, you know, discretionary spending, such as, do you really need Netflix? What's the other ones? Disney Plus, Amazon Prime. Do you really need all the streaming services? Maybe you sacrifice a little bit to get ahead. Can you join a cheaper gym? I'm just thinking of all my expenses and what I did. Can you stop getting things done? Like eyelash extensions, or maybe it's like you're not getting your hair done as frequently, or maybe it's going to a cheaper hairdresser. I know it sounds like a lot of sacrifice, but all the little stuff does add up. Then I would say it's a mixture of other things, such as like, you know, doing meal prep, not eating out as much, not getting takeaway as much. I also use things like Shopback or other apps that, like, if I was buying something, could I get it on discount? So like really trying to like tidy up those type of things. I have to burp. Yuck. How much should you have saved before you even start thinking about it? Guys, you should be thinking about it from the get-go. Even if you have $100 in your house account, that's actually a good tip. I created a separate account for my house, and so I would put money in there and I could see it going up. I have 2 bank accounts. I have a bank account with Upbank and a bank account with ING. And with Upbank, you can set up really cool savers so that it kind of makes saving fun. So I'd recommend that. But you should be thinking about it. Having an end goal, having a why, keeps you on track. How to stay positive when your savings or salary does not compare to the property market. What I would say is you keep saving, you keep going to inspections, you never know what might happen. I ended up getting the property that I bought for nearly 30 grand cheaper than what I thought I was going to pay. And I was willing to pay that much more because I had pre-approval for that. I was willing to pay that much more, but I didn't end up having to, because on the day of the auction, we ended up being the highest bidder. The property got passed in, which meant if the property gets passed in, or if the property is under what the vendor, the seller, wants, it gets passed into the seller, and basically they then negotiate with the highest bidder, who was myself and my buyer's agent, and then we agreed on a cost, which was really cool because I thought I was going to have to pay heaps more or miss out on the property altogether. As for your savings or salary not comparing, I know this is not for everyone, but potentially, does it look like asking for a pay rise or working towards a pay rise with your employer? Is it finding a higher paying role? Are there other avenues for you to make additional income? Is it starting a little side hustle? I know that some of my friends have done like freelance stuff on like Airtasker and made extra cash that way. Are there other ways that you can either bring in money or like reduce your money? I would say. And then I would say just you have to hang on to the hope. Even though it may make you want to like give up and think it's never gonna happen for me, it will. And I know that it's hard when you see prices going for so much money and it feels impossible. I get it. But at the same time, you have to hang on to the hope, because anything is really possible. You know, I've heard stories, and you know, these stories were told to me many years ago, so the price of property was like so different now. But someone I used to work with ended up buying this property that is probably worth like triple the amount now, because the person that lived in it had like passed away, and they were looking for a quick sale, and it ended up working out miraculously. And I know that example is morbid, but you just never know what could occur. I'm getting so full. And it's getting dark, but I'm going to quickly answer some more. Did someone ask, did you use guarantors? No, I was going to, and I'll tell you why. So the amount that I had pre-approval for, every property that I went to kept going for like 10, 20, 30 grand over, and I was getting pissed off. And then my broker said, if your parents want to, we can explore that option. My mum and dad had a meeting with the broker. They were going to help me. But then because we ended up getting it so much cheaper, we didn't actually have to go down that path. And even with that, again, I note my privilege. I note it. I know I'm very lucky to have parents who would guarantor this house. So not every parent will do that, and that's okay as well. You don't have to have your parents do that for it to be possible. Best tips for first home buyers: talk to a broker, guys, honestly, because they'll be able to help you if you are eligible for that first home buyers grant, and they'll also be able to make sure that they can give you good advice. There's lots of questions about like how much percentage did you save? How do you save your money? And guys, on that, my income is different to your income. And so doing things like, I tried the barefoot investor habit. That didn't really work for me. I even tried, like, I think I had the most success with that little template, but really for me, it's like, I tried to work backwards from what amount I needed, and then tried to save as close to that as possible. Now, at the same time, there's lots of things that come up. Life comes up, random expenses come up. And so that's why I made the conscious effort to try and save a emergency fund first, and then save for the property. And that's also why I even went for a longer settlement. So they wanted a 30-day settlement. I said no. So I've gone for a longer settlement. I won't settle until the end of May which is a long time away, but I can still save and not have to pay the mortgage until then. So that's kind of why I did that as well. Someone says, it wasn't hard to buy a property by yourself. It feels impossible in this market. Yeah, guys, it was hard. But buying a property is hard. Guys, my camera died. I have to wrap it up because the battery, I charged it for a split second so that I could try and finish it. And I didn't quite get there. I'm so full as well. But I just want to say thank you if you did ask a question. I don't think I covered everything, and I think this was all over the place. I'm so sorry. I don't know if I'll ever do a mukbang again. It's very distracting trying to eat and concentrate. I think maybe I'll do another podcast. I'll do a podcast episode on this as well. I think that's the plan. Anyway, thank you so much. This will be up before the vlog. Hope that you enjoyed. I really appreciate you guys as always. Oh my god, I've lost it. I'm in a food coma. I'm entering the food coma. Thank you. I love you. Go buy these biscuits because they're bloody delicious, and I'll see you next time.